Good afternoon, everybody. I think we'll probably have people still continuing to join for a couple minutes here, but we'll go ahead and get started. And let's see. Got some good speakers today and interesting updates on our Forest Health grant up in Angwin and PUC. And a few updates to go over, and then we can catch up with all of you if there's any time at the end. Let's see. Okay, here we are. So again, a few updates and got some upcoming field trips to go over with you all. And then we'll hear from Tracy Katelman and Peter LaCourte about the Howell Mountain Forest Health Program project. The first thing I wanted to mention, let's see. Let's go over these first. As you know, the Defensible Space Cost Share Program is in full swing, and it is ending the end of June. So we're really hoping to have you all share this out as much as possible and really promote it to your fire safe councils. We do have the new the new program has a third-party assessment, which has been really well received so far. The contractor's using Fireside. So at the end of your assessment, you get a report with all of the recommendations for your home hardening and defensible space. And then you can choose from those selections for what you'd like to complete with the contractor and then put in for your cost share reimbursement. Have any of you, just a quick raise of hands, have any of you tried this yet on your own properties or had any good successes? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
We have two people in our FSC that have applied. One of them has, they've finished the evaluation and it's well on its way. And the other one is trying to sort out some stuff with the application, but they're hopefully scheduling his assessment or inspection tomorrow. So.
Good. Great. Any other quick updates on that realm? Okay. Well, again, we'd just love to have you all help promote as much as possible. I have heard from a few folks that there's been some difficulty. Some haven't been recognized for being within a high or very high hazard severity zone, with the difference between the previous Board of Forestry map and the new one. So you can just request a second review and that'll work. So if anyone has that problem, just so you know, or send them our way. I also wanted to welcome the new Capel Valley Fire Safe Council. We had a meeting last week and made it official that they'll be joining the Fire Safe Council councils of Napa County. So thanks to all of them, and they will be looking for support. So if any of you have nuggets to share with Lon, he'll be on probably in a little bit. And more news. There are some upcoming events. The Napa County OES is going to be having two resources fair, one this Friday in Napa and a second one in St. Helena the following Friday. Napa Firewise will be there, and it's going to be a really family-friendly event with the usual resources and food trucks with food available to purchase. So you can spread the word to your fire safe councils and please join us if you can. There's also going to be a virtual Facebook town hall that Supervisor Alfredo Pedroza is going to be hosting, and Christopher Thompson will be part of that as well. So you can look for that on the 30th. And also on the 30th is Napa County PBA or Prescribed Burn Association kickoff meet and greet. It's mostly just to share information and allow people to ask questions. And that's going to be hosted by Tori Norville, our fire advisor with UC Extension down in Napa at the UC Extension office. The other piece of news I wanted to share with you is Napa Firewise is currently going to be trying to tally all the volunteer hours that all of your fire safe councils have expended over the last year. So some of you who are already Firewise USA certified are already tracking that information pretty closely, and others of you are doing that anyway. But if you haven't been tracking that, if you could just do a back of the envelope sketch for the number of hours you estimate, and you can work with myself or Jonathan to get those numbers. But we would love to ask you for those by the end of the week if possible. So look for an email from me or from Jonathan with a little bit more details about that, and we can talk about that more. And then again, if any of you are doing the the Firewise USA already, if you're certified or if you're trying to get certified, this is information that you'll need to be tracking anyway going forward. And those of you who've already done this, if you have any tips for the rest of the fire safe councils about a good way to keep that information at your fingertips, that would be really great to have you share that as well. And Eileen, did you have a question?
Yes, Shari, I think we talked about this very briefly, but in terms of how we document the cost, the money spent and the time, can we get some clear direction on that? Because when people are submitting their costs and time, sometimes they try to take the monies they spend and divide it up into the hours by assuming like $30 an hour or $25 an hour. So it's all over the board. So it's very hard to document it consistently, in terms of having to submit it.
Yes. Well, there is a standardized figure for volunteer hours. I believe it's just the California going rate for volunteer hours. And we do have a timesheet. Tracy actually helped us get this together, but it's just a very simple way to track the time, the date, and the work description. You could put a range of dates in there if you needed to. But I believe the standard rate was just under $30 an hour for volunteer hours. As of last year, it's gone up this year.
Yeah, but what about money spent?
Yeah, would you be able to maybe from Napa Firewise create kind of a master chart for all of the different fire safe councils? Because from Diamond Mountain, we did our insurance certification, a few months ago, and it was, a lot of that sort of ad hoc, people writing up different things and then trying to sort of synthesize it into one thing. And in our case, we were like far and above beyond what the certification required for a neighborhood. But it would be cool if there was kind of a grid that was already created that we could pass out to our members and they could fill it out each year and turn it in, or fill it out each quarter or something.
Absolutely, Gretchen. I think that's a great idea.
Be an issue across the board for everybody.
I know. And what we had talked about was trying to have either some kind of a portal where you could log on and do it, or like you
That'd
suggested,
cool.
a kind of a form or something, but some way that we can keep it all handy and available for you to enter it at your own pace. And then we'll check in with you probably quarterly to see how it's going. And that's the plan, but we don't have that in place yet.
I had such good intentions myself after doing this whole insurance thing. It's like, okay, well, every meeting I'm at and everything I do, I should write down on this pad of paper. And then the pad of paper got used for something else and it moved on. And it's like, wait, and I'm organized and I still can't keep track. So
boy, do I ever know. I know.
Yeah,
it's a big challenge, and there
are
so many moving parts.
Thing on your list. All right.
Yeah, well, it's already on the list. So absolutely, yes. And,
thank you.
We'll look forward to
Shari, the time is one of the two pieces, right? The money spent on clearing, hazardous stuff and everything, that is a different.
Yes, money spent and hours spent are two different things.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, and both need to be tracked. So it's the best. We'll do the best we can with that. But in the short term, we just need an estimate for the last year of what your fire safe council put in volunteer wise. So again, I'm happy we can have a phone call and go over that too. If you need a little extra or someone to chat with about that.
So Sherry, could you just tell us exactly what you need by the end of the week? It's 2022 calendar year volunteer hours by
Fire Safe Council. So, you're
by
not going to know what
everybody in the
everybody
Fire Safe
did.
Council who gave volunteer hours.
Yes, exactly. That's
Okay.
exactly it. Bob, I think I still owe you an email about that,
Okay.
but I'll send you a little bit more in a minute here. Oh yes, look at that. Oh, Tracy, the current estimated national value is 3180. 3732 in 2022. Oh, thank you. That's great. My internet search came up with less than that, but that seems more appropriate for for the blood, sweat, and tears that the volunteers put in. I like it. So I'll change it on that form.
So Sherry, would you
Yes.
clarify, you want all the hours for 2022 plus the first quarter of 23?
Ideally, if you can, yes. The 2022 numbers we're looking for, and then we are going to be doing this quarterly. So if you're feeling extra industrious while you're at it and you want to go
Okay.
ahead and do your
Well, I
first
must
quarter,
have-
that'd be amazing. But the 2022 numbers are the ones we need a little bit more urgently for some reporting. It helps. It really does help us find the funds that we put to work for your fire safe councils and the whole county. It helps support the work we're doing, kind of the in-kind matches.
Okay. So we
Besides
could,
all the good work that you're doing in addition
right.
to.
So we could take what we submitted to Firewise USA and just report it to you for the year.
Perfect. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All
Hey,
right.
Sherry, just a quick
Yeah.
clarification. The note I got from Jonathan, he was looking to gather everything through April of this year as well. So not sure if that's helpful, but that's what I'm going to try to get to him.
If you can, again, that would be really helpful because we will need that information as well. So
Yep.
yes, thank you.
And the tracking
Absolutely.
sheet he said he has, that'll be a big help. So we can just hang on to that and keep
Yeah.
updating it as we go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My only concern is somebody's going to have to be the point person of this project, because I know I have council members that don't have Excel. They can't use Excel. I'm just a novice at it. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge to use that spreadsheet. So anyway,
Right.
and I guess my other question is, do you want individual hours or do you just want us to just log everybody and say who did what on the single spreadsheet?
You can lump it for us. Maybe the number of people would be helpful. The number of people putting in those hours, that would be great. Number of people who helped, who volunteer, that you're counting as volunteers, and the number of hours they worked. That'll be perfect.
Okay, but we could do it on a single sheet and just, okay, good enough.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
when we did this in 21, we created, I think it was a Google form that fire safe councils could use to enter the data, and it would go into a spreadsheet. So we're talking about doing something like that again too, to make it really easy. Go in, just dump in the numbers, and then we can get it calculated.
Yeah, and
Yes.
Firewise USA also has an example of a tally sheet.
Great. No reason to reinvent the wheel, but yeah, the one where I'm looking at that Tracy was talking about does look super simple. And we're not going to check the time of days and the days of the week that volunteers did work. We just need to get a general idea of what's going into all this coordination and collaboration and getting work done on the ground. All the good things you're all doing. It does, it counts in lots of different ways besides making your community safer. You do get recognized for it, even if you don't get the trophies you all deserve. All right. So if anyone else, if we can certainly discuss this more and anything else at the end, but I just want to make sure we give Tracy and Peter some time to tell us some good stories about all the things that are going on in Angwin, and then we can go see it on the 21st, because I didn't put this on here because Tracy's going to talk about it, but we do have a field trip coming up on the 21st to go see these things in person. And we'll be sending you a flyer for that as well, with all the recordings and all the materials from this presentation by Friday. There we go. So Tracy, I'm going to stop sharing, maybe. And there we go. Take over.
Okay, let's see how this works. That should do it. Did that. Are you
Got it.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, great. So hi, I know some of you, my name's Tracy Katelman. I'm a registered professional forester. I've been working with Napa Firewise for going on 3 years, mainly working in grant writing and such. But I been working with Peter LaCourte for 2 years to get funding, which we got last year from a Forest Health grant, and I'm going to talk about that. And I'm managing that project because I really want to get back out in the woods, and this is a way that I can get back out in the woods. So just briefly about the project in general, it's called Napa's Howell Mountain Corridor, and pardon me, I'm going to be looking over here at the slides. Forest Ecotone and Fire Resiliency Restoration Project. And the reason we decided to go for this project, in addition to all the work Peter has done, is that this is really a key location in the county. For those of you familiar with this part around Angwin, it's this ridgetop corridor, and it's what we call an ecotone edge. It's really where we see the western wetter forests of redwood and Doug fir meet up with the drier eastern veg types, so basically chaparral and gray pine. And so within a few minutes, you can be walking from redwoods into chaparral up there. It's a really diverse spot. Got lots of different critters, lots of different species. It's been recognized by the state with a few conservation easements through forest legacy funding. And of course, it's part of a whole corridor there where we've got Las Posadas State Forest to the south, and then the Land Trust has their Oakland Preserve, and then there's Pacific Union College, and then the McAllister parcel, which I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So we thought this was a really important place. Plus, it hasn't burned since the 30s. One of the few places, y'all know, over 60% of Napa's burned in the last 5+ years. This is one of the few places that haven't. So, and I will be showing you a map here in a moment. So for all those reasons, we thought this was a really important place to get some funding to basically restore the forests and make them more fire resilient. So let's see how this works. Click, there we go. So we applied 2 years in a row. Second time we got this CAL FIRE Forest Health grant, and this is the language that the state requires us to put about that funding. It basically comes from California Climate Investments, and the forest health grants are a little bit different than the fire prevention grants that you all may be more familiar with, because the forest health grants are about restoring forest health. They're managed by a different part of CAL FIRE. It's called the Climate and Energy Branch Division Department, I think, of CAL FIRE, which is different than the new Community Wildland Preparedness and Mitigation, I think, which oversees fire prevention grants and defensible space and the new home hardening stuff and all that. And they're really looking at the forest health side in terms of how do we build climate resiliency? How do we restore our forests so they survive climate change and they continue to capture carbon and reduce greenhouse gas effects? So a little bit different motivation in terms of why they want to give money for these. And Joe's on, Napa Firewise just got announced that we've got a next forest health grant that's going to be over on the Mount Veeder side near Enchanted Hills Lighthouse for the Blind, the Vets Home, that'll start next year, which is pretty exciting. So this project is on 2 properties, and Peter's here from PUC, and he's going to talk towards the end more about PUC and what they're doing specifically. But we started with PUC because of Peter's interest and his involvement with Napa Firewise and just the importance of PUC. Like I said, PUC has received a couple of conservation easements. It's really recognized statewide as an important piece of local biodiversity, and it's a working forest. And so it's got a lot of things going for it in terms of a priority for the state and why we'd want to do management there. Y'all probably know it's like the premier recreation spot for Napa County, et cetera. So we're going to be treating, well, the original idea was to treat at least 710 acres of their over 1,000-acre demonstration forest. That's changed since the storms, but I'll tell you about that in just a moment. And then just to the north of Pacific Union College, the McAllister Ranch, Timberlane Ranch, is adjacent. It's another 700-acre parcel. And together, they both have what's called they each have what's called a non-industrial timber management plan, which is a long-term plan for small landowners of 2,500 acres and less who are committed to uneven age management, sustainable management, meaning that they're not going to clear cut, but they're looking at how to sustain long-term forest yield and forest health over time. And so we reached out to McAllister and suggested that we partner together on this project, and they were interested. And it turns out I've worked with their foresters from up in Humboldt, and we've made a great team working together on this as a whole. So here's the project and the map. So here's Angwin. This black line is the community of Angwin. The purple, this is the property boundary for Pacific Union College. This blue one is for McAllister. This is like Howell Mountain Road going down to Pope Valley, right?
Right.
So this, some of you may be familiar with all the work that Peter and Napa Firewise have been doing over the last couple of years to create a fuel break along the ridge top. And Peter may refer to this a bit later. So that's happened in a few different phases, some with county money, some with other money Peter's raised. So this yellow part is part of that fuel break. Plus we've got this brown part and the red. These are all kind of mixed in with where that existing fuel break is and where we're going to do some different treatments, because it's already had the initial fuel reduction done for fire, because CAL FIRE and local fire departments recognize that's a key place to slow fire down from coming over from the east into Angwin or vice versa. But it's a ridge top where, as you all know, it's generally a better place to try to put in some fire control. And one of the things we're going to be doing in that brown area that you see is replanting some redwood and Douglas fir for carbon capture, basically. As I mentioned, this is Forest Health funding. We want to increase our carbon capture and reduction of greenhouse gases. We've also got planned, or had planned, I should say, in the red to do broadcast burning, which we're pretty excited about. These are areas that had had previous treatments, and we thought they were ready to go in and do prescribed fire, which broadcast burning is a little different than pile burning, in that we're not just going to go light piles, but actually, burn around the edges of the perimeter of these units and then burn into them to try to clear out the understory and provide all the benefits of prescribed fire to that forest, including increased nutrients and such. That's changed a bit with the storms, but I'll get into that in a minute. So other important things to note about this map, this light green, this is all the areas where we're masticating, and we're currently doing that with Chris DeWitt of Vegetation Management Services. He's been mainly working along here. This is the main McAllister Road and down these other roads, and then continued on over here. And he's currently working up here on the west side of the PUC Ridgeline Fuel Break. And then the darker green areas are where we're doing hand thinning. And with the hand thinning, so it means a crew goes in instead of having the machines go in and do this work. These are areas that might be more sensitive, steeper. We may want more close attention to detail, which is Peter will probably talk about, but like around the Redwood Flat and other areas where we have a lot of visitors or a lot of visibility. We want to really get in there and do that work by hand. And then for those areas, they go in and thin, then they're going to pile them. And then next year or the following year, we would go in and burn the piles. So that's generally the overall plan for how we're going to be working on these two properties. And again, this is the McAllister and this is PUC. And just, I'll be talking in a minute about the storm damage, but I just want to mention, y'all know about the February snowstorm that came in and had a lot of heavy snow and basically really affected the east side of this ridge. And it kind of ran along this exact band of our project. And it happened to be where we had just done a lot of this work. So that's created an interesting challenge for us. Here's a picture of what it looks like in an area that had already been treated. And it's been an interesting opportunity for us on the one hand. So if you see here, these are all conifers, right? Doug fir, redwood, and some Doug fir in here. And then a lot of these are the hardwoods that came down, the tan oak. And what we found is that with this storm, this heavy snow, it hit what we call the mid-level canopy hardwoods. So those hardwoods like tan oaks that are pretty tall, not the down ladder fuels that a lot of you work on in your projects. And it just weighed them down and knocked them over. And a lot of them had really small root balls because of so many years of drought. They were really stressed. They just couldn't hold on to the ground with that heavy weight on their leaves, and it knocked them down. The good news is that's something as foresters and as forest managers, that's something we were going to be planning to do eventually. And we were going to have to raise more money to go in and do that second, what we call a second entry, and take out some of that mid-story tan oak. And now Mother Nature's done that for us. So we saved some money there. We're not going to have to fall these trees, as we call it, take down those trees. But as I showed you on that last slide, it happened right in the area where we had been working with Chris DeWitt since October. And so the areas that we already treated, and we did it under what's called a forest fire prevention exemption. It's a CAL FIRE permit that's more for if you've got a forester, if you've got a licensed timber operator, a little bit different than some of the other permits that you might use and that Napa Firewise is using on other projects. Well, on a forest fire prevention exemption, you have to show that you've gotten rid of all these ladder fuels, right? All the stuff on the ground so that it's safe for fire. Well, now it's not. So we have to go back and retreat those areas. So the good news is Mother Nature did the work for us. The bad news is it's going to probably cost us another $200,000 to go in and retreat those. We estimated about 25 acres at PUC and 21 acres at McAllister. The equivalent of that will need to be retreated, and that would cost us a little over $200,000. To pay for that, we were proposing to CAL FIRE a grant amendment that we pull out 27 acres of the broadcast burning that we had proposed, those red areas on the map, and 39 acres of McAllister, which is on the east side of the McAllister property. And, you know, unfortunately, the broadcast burning acres, those were acres, like I said, had been treated over the last couple of years. They were looking really beautiful. They were ready for us to put fire on the ground, but now they have this, what we call this heavy fuel later. But we're hopeful that we're going to be able to still maybe work with CAL FIRE crews or other volunteers and do some work there to clean up some of those acres so we can still burn in them. So we don't have to, we had 66 acres, I believe, no, 68 acres, I believe, total of broadcast burning, and we're going to have to pull out 27 acres of them. So that's just part of managing a big project, right? This kind of stuff happens, and especially with climate change and a lot of extreme weather, we just have to be ready for it. Luckily, our partners at CAL FIRE are pretty amenable to it, it seems. So then where does that leave us? So I wanted to tell you a little bit about our prescription, what we call, so in forestry, we have our treatment types, which as I mentioned, you know, we're doing mastication, we're doing hand thinning, we're doing broadcast burning, we're doing replanting. But our prescription as a forester, prescription is what we call our desired future condition, or, you know, what are we trying to get to? And then what's the prescription? What is the management that we would do to get there? And so in this case, what we've proposed for this project is anything that's under 12 inches or less DBH, which is diameter at breast height. So if you stand up on the uphill side of a tree and 4.5 feet up and you measure the diameter tree, if it's 12 inches or less, then those are trees that we're removing. We've got a spotted owl activity center in those areas. We're keeping it 10 inches and less because we want to make sure that we're not impacting that habitat. Well, actually, I guess we say 11 inches. So 11 inches and under to maintain, to make sure that we're not hitting anything 12 inches or more. And then in hardwood stands, where we've got madrone and tan oak, you know, more pure stands of hardwoods, then we're going for even a smaller diameter because those tend to not grow as fast, not be as big of a diameter of the tree. And then we want to also create some spacing. We don't want it to be uniform, right? You don't want to make, you know, have one tree here, one tree there, like a plantation. And you want it to have more of a natural forest condition, but to have some spacing in there for the current trees to have room to grow, and also for future regeneration. So future trees to grow, we want to create space for them. So we talk a little bit about what our residual horizontal spacing is, and that we're really targeting those large, healthy trees because those are the most fire resilient. They tend to be the healthiest one in the stand in the forest. Pardon me, I'm using a lot of forestry jargon. And that those are the ones that we want to create the seeds for the future forest, right? In areas where we have a lot of small trees, then basically the prescription is to kind of create clumps and breaks in clumps, and then especially create like little clumps of habitat for some of the critters that might need those dense brushy areas and such. So we don't want to create any big holes or openings, but we also don't want to have this totally thick, solid mass understory or forest. So we're trying to create some diversity in the forest because given that it hasn't burned in a long time, natural dynamics have been kind of out of whack. We want to create a more natural forest where we see some diversity so that if we have a disturbance, whether it's snow or wind or fire, that the forest is more resilient to withstand it, that it's not basically one thing that's all the same, and that disturbance would come in and could destroy it all. So our hand thinning, so that was for mastication. Our hand thinning is basically the same, but these areas like this that I think, Peter, you guys call this the church?
Church bowl.
Say that again?
Church bowl.
The church bowl. So this is an area that PUC has, really beautiful down by the Redwood Grove. And this is where a lot of people come and have talks and that kind of thing. And so this is an area where it's important to us that we do it by hand so we can pay a little more attention to detail. And we're just about, Peter just gave a couple tours this week to some contractors, and we're hoping in the next couple of weeks to award that bid for a hand thinning to get a lot of that work done this summer for our first year. We've got basically CAL FIRE grants now tend to run about 3.5 years. I'm guessing we're going to get this done probably quicker than that, but we're finishing up our year 1 mastication now. We'll probably start our year 2 mastication by the end of summer, and we're starting our year 1 thinning. And we got awarded the grant in July and really got started working in October. So here again, this is what we're doing year 1. So this is the mastication we did at McAllister. This is the mastication that they've done at PUC, and this is where they're working now at PUC. And then we'll have these little dotted areas are the hand thinning, and that's changing a little bit, and Peter will talk about that. This green, the dark green, is basically the outline of what we're funding with the Forest Health Grant. All those are the areas that we're going to be treating with the Forest Health Grant. And here's Las Posadas, I mentioned, and the Oak Preserve of the Land Trust. And again, this is kind of right through this elevation band. That storm just, like, they couldn't have planned it better. Get right through the area that we'd been working. Let's see. And then this is where I'm going to pass it over to Peter. So Peter, go ahead, and then we'll open up for questions.
Sure. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Peter LaCourte. I am the forest manager for Pacific Union College here in Angwin. I've been on the Angwin Fire Safe Council for about 6 years now, and I was on the Napa Firewise board for 3 years until I retired a year ago. This project has really been a dream come true. Angwin is in a uniquely vulnerable spot here as a mountain town WUI community, and we're really getting a lot of support from the state as well as the county and Napa Firewise to make our community more resilient. So I'm very thankful for all the support that we're getting and all this work that we're getting done. This map shows what we are tackling here on year 1. We've got some areas, 1C and 1F. Those are mapped units for our grant. Those are west of our ridgeline fuel break. And so what we're doing is we are taking the ridgeline fuel break, which is just to the east of that, and connecting it with some of these fields that you see to the west, because those fields are what CAL FIRE is ultimately going to use when they're trying to stop a fire from getting from Pope Valley into Angwin. So we're doing a lot of mastication in those areas because it's a nice gradual slope that can support masticators. Masticators are great machines, but they do have some limitations on where they're able to work. They can't work on slopes that get above 35%, and they also have a problem with rocky areas and also areas that might be a little ecologically more sensitive, which is what we have down below, what you see in units 1E. Yes, on that part of the map. Thank you, Tracy. Those are areas where either the terrain is a little bit too steep and rocky, so we have to put hand crews in there, or that 1E, that is where that redwood grove is. So we've got a kind of sensitive biological community. We've got a northern spotted owl nest that's near there. And then it's also just our prettiest area of the forest. So we've decided we're going to be putting hand crews in there. Hand crews have a lighter touch. The issue with using hand crews over masticators is that when you do hand thinning, you then have to pay to pile the material, and then you have to burn the material. And doing, a few burn piles in your backyard isn't a huge challenge, but you try to do hundreds of acres of burn pile and thousands of burn piles in just a few years. That is logistically challenging from Bay Area air quality point of view, CAL FIRE point of view. So with masticators, they actually get rid of that need to burn the piles. When you burn the piles, they also, all that carbon that you cut goes up into the atmosphere. And with masticators, the carbon gets returned into the soil and continues to be stored on site. So those are a couple reasons why we prefer masticators in some areas over hand crew thinning. So I think that about covers it. Tracy, what am I missing here?
I think that's it. Why don't you talk a little bit about what we're going to see on the field trip, where we're going to be and what we'll see there?
Absolutely. So on the field trip, which is, I believe,
I'll talk about that in the next slide, the details, but
well, we're going to be getting to see the suite of treatments that we have seen here in the PUC Forest. We're going to see some areas where the masticators have just finished working in that Unit 1C. The parking lot where you guys will be meeting us is just on the southwestern corner of that Unit 1C. Yes, right there. Thank you, Tracy. That's where the masticators are working now. We get the privilege of meeting Chris DeWett, the owner of the mastication company that is working for us. And he's really, truly a leader, not only in the county, but frankly, in the North Bay. He just does really, really high quality mastication work. We were very lucky to find him. So we get to meet him, see some of his work. It's a good opportunity for you guys to get his card if you're interested in him doing some work in your areas. From there, we're going to head up to the ridgeline and we're going to see where we've done a selective timber harvest along the ridgeline, getting a better spacing of our larger trees to result in less competition of water and nutrient resources, and also having a better spacing for our ridgeline fuel break, where we need to have a space in the canopy to try to disrupt a potential crown fire that might move over from Pope Valley. We're also going to get to see a broadcast burn unit where I've tried to burn a few years in a row and failed for numerous reasons. We'll get to talk about the challenges and logistics of doing prescribed fire. We're going to see some areas that have been hand crew thinned, both with piling and a lop and scatter prescription, which is where they take the material and as opposed to piling it, they just spread it out. That has its ups and downs, which we're going to get to talk more about. And we're going to get to see PUC's gorgeous mossy rock trail. So you're going to get to just enjoy a nice hike here in the PUC Forest on a lovely Sunday with all of your beloved colleagues here. So it's going to be a good time. I highly recommend you come and join us on that tour.
thanks, Peter. And I want, when you said you failed on the broadcast burn, it just means that we haven't been able to burn yet. He hasn't tried and had a failure of a burn, but we haven't had successfully the right combination of weather, crews, the unit being ready, all that, which is part of the complication of broadcast burning, and which Peter mentioned, he'll talk about that. So I'm going to show you a little bit, and we'll put BMS, we'll put their contact info in the chat here momentarily. Let's see if I can. So basically, and I'm going to go back to that map in a second to show you exactly where we're meeting, but we're going to be May 21st, which is 2 weeks from Sunday, from 2 to 4 p.m. We're going to meet at that trailhead parking lot. That is near 405 Las Posadas Road. Let me see if I can go back. Yes, cool. So this is Las Posadas Road, and it makes this sharp right turn here. And I think 405 is like the last address on the map. So you'd go just past that. And when the road makes a sharp right turn, you turn left right there. And there's a dirt road that goes right along the border between the state forest, and it ends up in this parking lot. So that's where we're going to meet. And then we'll park our cars there and we'll walk from there. But if you put 405 Las Posadas in, and then you just go a little bit past that and turn left when the road turns right, you'll be there.
You can also enter in Google Maps, PUC Forest Trailhead, and Google Maps will navigate you there.
Oh, awesome. It's there now. I don't know if Jonathan or Sherry, you want to add any of this, but basically what the Firewise team recommend is wear your hiking shoes, bring a bottle of water. Chris DeWett will be there, and he'll be able to show some of his machines. They're probably not going to be working just for safety. We want to keep you guys away from active working machines. But I think this is basically the info about it. And I think that's the last slide. So Peter and I can answer questions if you have them. I know we talked a fair bit of jargon and stuff there, so don't be shy.
Do you mind if I share a picture of the masticator and the work, Tracy? Or
Not at all. Let me stop sharing. We might have to make you a co-host.
okay, if it's complicated, it's no big deal.
No, I think you can do it. Go for it. Give it a shot. If
Wow.
not, I'll sign you up.
So I don't have a question so much as I have a comment, just how impressive the work that you're doing up there is. It's just incredible. And like, can you move over to Diamond Mountain anytime soon? Can we just have your whole team over here?
Hopefully
No,
we get you guys
I
over
know.
there.
We're just learning so much from you. And it's just, I was up there on a field trip with a forestry class this winter and saw some of the work that you've done. It's super impressive. I love the map
Oh,
that
thank
you showed today, because that's really visual and it helps us really see like how much territory you're really treating. And just it's heartening to know that it's possible, you know, to make headway and to get some grants and work with CAL FIRE. And, you know, we're doing some of that over here on Diamond Mountain, but it's, you know.
Absolutely. Well, all boats
Ongoing.
rise with the tide. We did our first project here in the PUC Forest about 4 years ago with some funding from Napa Firewise, some private funding, as well as some funding from a government agency called the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. That then showed other funders that we could get work done, and more people started coming on board. Then Napa Firewise started supporting the work. And then when the county saw all the good Napa Firewise was able to do in Angwin, they started trusting us with more and more funding. So all boats are really rising with the tide, and I'm proud for the role Angwin has played in that.
Well, you have really been leadership in this, and it's been very heartening. Thank you.
Big thanks to Napa Firewise for all the support.
Yeah.
This is a picture. We can see one of the masticators here with a nice, well-spaced forest composition. This area literally was a jungle before this guy walked through. We've all seen we've all been through areas in the county where the forest is so thick from the past 100 years of fire suppression that a deer can't walk through, you can't see through, fire rushes through these ecosystems. And another important part of that is a lot of that overdense understory that doesn't get cleared by a healthy fire regime then sucks up the water from the larger trees that need it. And this is one of the things that's resulting in a lot of the conifer mortality we're seeing here in the county. So when we get through and we do these thinning projects, not only do we have fewer fuels for fire to burn, but also then we've got less competition for water and nutrient resources and trees that are better able to thrive off of the limited water regime we have here in our Mediterranean climate in Napa County. So this is really a nice, pretty picture that I enjoy very much. That goes to show this is what fire scientists tell us that our forests used to look like in the past, where we've got, you know, larger trees that are well spaced out that actually have walking room between them versus the overgrown jungles that we see in a lot of the county right now. So with that.
Well said, and sorry about the noise there, just dropping things right and left over here. But I wanted to second what Gretchen said. We'd love to see forest health grants going on all through. I would love to see them in my neighborhood too, and all over the county. It's just would be really, really, that's where we're sort of headed, I'm hoping. And I don't know if Tracy, if you or Joe want to, is Joe still on, mention more about that forest health grant up and coming, brand new,
We're
hot
just
off
going
the
to keep
presses?
tapping into your amazing expertise, Tracy and Joe and everybody. You know, we just really appreciate it, and we're learning right and left, listening to you speak about it. It's awesome.
I always love an excuse to get out to the forest. So it's so easy to end up at the desk all the time instead. Go ahead, Joe, if you want to talk about the new one.
Yeah, I mean, to your point on that, Tracy, it's, you know, why do we do any of this stuff, right? It's if you can't get out and be in the woods, that's what all this work is about. Yeah, so this most recent forest health grant that we've secured is for a bunch of land that is along Oakville Ridge Road, forests that haven't burned in, you know, similarly 100 years or something like that, north of the veterans home, behind the veterans home. And then there's a ridge further to the west of the vets home that has two big draws, big breaks in it, Sagazia Canyon and Wing Canyon, where a fire that would advance from the west east, which is kind of the historical pattern of fire in that area, could break through that ridge, be hard to stop it, and proceed to the Veterans Home, which is one of 3 hospitals in the Valley, and obviously a pretty vulnerable population. So this project obviously has fire resiliency built into it, but it's really about taking those forests, which are dense and overgrown, in some cases near the Enchanted Hills Lighthouse for the Blind, the Camp for the Blind. The forests it's a legacy burn scar. And so there are there's a lot of dead standing fuel, regrowth underneath it. So the forest was sort of unhealthy so to speak of before the fire. The fire burned a lot of stuff, created a different kind of fuel regime. And Tracy, as an RPF, and even Peter could opine a little bit more technically about what that means, but there's a need to kind of get in there and open up that understory and resolve some of the legacy material that's there from the fire around Enchanted Hills, and then to try to restore the forests along Oakville Ridge so that they're kind of a healthier, more kind of open fuel spacing to protect that area. One thing to sort of keep in mind, we look at these particular grants where there tends to be a little less competition, forest health grants. They're very specific. They require a certain acreage minimum. And so one of the things that we've done at Napa Firewise, or that we're in the process of doing, is sort of building a pipeline of future forest health grants. And they are more technical applications in nature. You don't have to have a timber management plan or a forest management plan in advance, but you want to be dealing with no more than like 3 landowners. You have to hit a minimum threshold of, I think it's 900 acres. Is that right, Tracy?
I think it was 700, maybe 8 now.
Maybe 800. So you have to have large acreage, and then you have to be able to address it from a forest health standpoint. It has to meet certain parameters, and the owners of the land have to be willing to put up some money in advance to do inventory of the forest and to gather a bunch of data that feeds into CAL FIRE's greenhouse gas modeling. So it's not necessarily the kind of grant that you can go pursue where the owners of the land aren't really that involved and they just give permission. You have to have property owners that are willing to spend some money to basically do forest inventory work so that we can collect the data and organize the various treatment areas in such a way that we can feed it into CAL FIRE's model. So what we've realized is the nature of these things, as Tracy mentioned, they had to apply for that grant twice. We had to apply for it twice before we got it. We learned a lot of lessons going through what we went through with PUC and McAllister. And those lessons informed how we approached the Veterans Home and the Enchanted Hills Lighthouse for the Blind project. And we were able to get landowners to sort of step up and do a lot of work in advance. So it was a good proof case that you can win one of these things without having a forest management plan in advance, but you need landowners that are ready to spend some money to, do all that inventory and gather all that data. So what we're doing right now is kind of building a pipeline of, I don't know, there's about 6 or so other places around the county that have values at risk where there's 2 or 3 large landowners that, where it's forested land, where there's sort of an ecological narrative that we can build out so that we can continue to try to chase this money and get the work done around the county and these big landscape level areas. So that's maybe a little more context, but Tracy, by all means.
Yeah, that was great. And ultimately that data has to show that what we're proposing, the prescriptions we're proposing are going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Right.
And so that's why we're having to capture that data. And so the management that we're doing, and we added in the tree planting up at PUC to help bring up our numbers. Actually, that was part of that strategy.
Yeah, we had to do that on the Veterans Home one as well.
So it's different than if you're just doing straight fire prevention. There are different long-term future desired conditions as we talk about it in forestry.
Yeah.
And we'll get into a lot of that in the woods on the 21st.
It is a 800-acre minimum.
800 acres.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Joe, congratulations on that. That is a big deal that we got a second forest health grant. I'm so happy for you guys that you made that happen.
Oh yeah, I mean, congratulations Napa County and Napa Firewise, I mean, they're very, very, very time consuming applications, as
Yeah.
Tracy and Peter know.
Peter and I worked on, over the course of over a year, basically, before we got it.
Yeah.
Our first one fully funded.
The first time we got denied. When you work in grants, you can't get your heart broken easily. You just have to pick yourself up and try again.
And it was actually a good thing for us because then we got to reorganize a little bit, increase some of our cost per acre, because that was during COVID when prices were going up really fast. So it only ended up slowing us down maybe 6 months, I think, Peter.
Yeah, right.
And it worked out to our advantage. And so it's just the two areas right now that we've gotten funded. We've got the one in Angwin and then the one over by the vet's home that Joe just mentioned.
So just so y'all know, we have a motto or a saying on the Napa Firewise Grants Committee, which is that our actual win ratio on grants is somewhere around 50 to 65%. But we like to say that we're 100% successful eventually, because we don't really take no for an answer. We tend to, if we apply for something, we don't get it, we figure out how to repurpose the content and go to another grant, or we just reapply again and we try to fine tune it and tweak it and improve it. So, I mean, we're pretty dogged in our determination about getting the money to do these large projects, and we don't really like taking no for an answer.
I used to work in nonprofit previously, and the expression was no is the first step to yes.
Exactly.
And we do it with a lot of partners.
Yes.
Every one of our projects, every one of our grants has got a lot of partners in it and support. And these bigger ones, the RCD is one of our main partners, the Land Trust. We got through the current Forest Health grant, we got funding, and then we applied for additional support through the Board of Forestry to do a model VTP, vegetation treatment program, which is basically the long-term permit. So I mentioned we have the NTMPs, the non-industrial timber management plan. That's a long-term timber permit, but CAL FIRE decided that that doesn't really apply for grant funding. And so if you want a long-term permit for doing the non-timber, what they call commercial, then it's the vegetation treatment program. So we did that permit, and now we did that in close cooperation with the Land Trust and working with the RCD, and we're just getting it submitted to the Board of Forestry now to permit 20 different projects all around Angwin. So we're super excited about that.
You know, one other thing on these forest health grants is it's a lot of money. And so CAL FIRE's expectation is they want landowner parcel owners who are in a position to maintain these things, because they're not interested in spending all this money and then having those property owners go back and say, hey, we need more money to maintain it. So there does tend to be a bias in these things towards people that, have the means to take that investment and get ahead of the curve on this forest management work, and then continue to spend the hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years to make sure that the work doesn't go to waste. So there is, that is an element that we have to take into consideration when we try to figure out, what's the next one to pursue. Is it close to values at risk? Are the landowners folks who are going to be able to take care of these things in the years after the work is done? Is it close to a vulnerable population? You get points for that. So there's a lot that kind of goes into figuring out which of these things to chase.
And that it's not going to be converted to development, that these are going to be long-term working forests.
Yeah.
Cool. Back to you, Sherry. You've got a few minutes to wrap it up. And we'll see you all on the 21st.
Yeah, fantastic. And I do hope that you can join us on the 21st. We started these field trips to support the Fire Safe Council leads and show you the projects that are going on around the county. But we would like to start opening them up with this one in particular to the community at large. So please do feel free to share the invitation with anyone you think might be interested in going out to walk in the woods and learn about all this and see it firsthand and ask lots of questions. And as an added bonus, the flea market in Angwin is that morning. So you can make a whole day of Angwin fun. It's maybe only a locally beloved event. But again, just appreciate all of your hard work. And the other thing, I suppose, I think most of you already know this, but Napa Firewise is working on doing some roadside hazardous vegetation removal currently in Mount Veeder on 8 roads, well, 7 in Mount Veeder, and then also White Sulphur Springs over in Spring Mountain Fire Safe Council. And then we're also very soon going to be moving over to Howell Mountain and clearing along a bunch of those roads and trying to clean up some of the storm damage, down trees just along the roadsides. But it will be, I think it will be really important and probably really well appreciated, but we are working really hard to try to get the landowner agreements for the roads in the Mount Veeder Fire Safe Council in particular. Just so you know, as projects do come up, that is something that we really need the help from the fire safe councils to get those landowner agreements and help people understand what it is we're trying to do and answer questions and spread the word. So keep that in
So I'm going
mind.
to jump in from Diamond Mountain and say a
Yes.
big thank you to Napa Firewise, because we did complete a huge roadside clearing grant from Napa Firewise and some other funding. That was last fall, September, October, and kind of dribbled into November. And it was astonishing. It was so fantastic. Everybody was so thrilled. We did have some fallen trees from the snow kill, and that was a bit disappointing, but the county came in and did some cleanup on that. And so now I'm driving up and down Diamond Mountain Road, and the spring growth of just grasses and other small stuff. I mean, the big stuff got cleared out, so it looked amazing. It looked like a haircut, and we loved it. But now I'm sort of like, we're scratching our heads saying, how do we manage just this kind of weedy growth that's suddenly so intense after the intense rains that we've had? Any kind of suggestions? I was thinking about sending an email out to the neighbors, just saying like, okay, in a few weeks, like, why don't you all plan to go down to your frontage and start weed whacking? But some people are absentee and some people are old, and that's not necessarily going to happen on every mile. So I don't know. Do you have any ideas on that? Anybody?
Well, first of all, I would say your idea of encouraging all the neighbors to do weed whacking along their frontage road, we would strongly encourage that. Anyone who's able to go out and do that weed whacking, because it is, it's not a one and done. It's a
Right.
maintenance, it's ongoing, and especially this year with all that rain, it's been growth has been just kind of
Crazy.
mind-boggling.
Yeah, mind-boggling. It's beautiful, except for when you imagine what happens when it's dry. You know,
Yes.
it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly.
I would build
And
off of
then-
that and say that like weekend work parties, pick a Saturday or Sunday and organize a 4 or 6 hour period in the morning and
That's a
invite
great idea.
everybody to come out, because then
Party.
like several, you make it fun. The people who can't come, I've done this in other neighbors, like the people who can't come, like send snacks or whatever. And then you have a couple of pickup trucks going along with tools and the snacks, and people just walk up the road and all together do it. And you get a
That is
lot
great
done. And it's
idea that I had
fun.
not thought of, and I'm always up for a party. So we have a fabulous Christmas party, which is the actual root and foundation of why Diamond Mountain Fire Safe Council is strong, because we've had a 30-year Christmas party. So a roadside cleanup party, that's the great.
Road workday party. And that's the perfect for
Tracy.
Fire Safe Council to organize.
Mhm. Very
And
good.
make happen and make fun and reach out to all the neighbors. And again, those folks who can't help, you can say, hey, if you can't help, will you, throw in $50 or something to
Right.
help buy
Little water
food.
and snacks and stuff. Yeah. Okay. Well, there's
Somebody can
that's a
host
good
it.
inspiration.
Sometimes it's like a post after the work party, you go do like a barbecue at somebody's
I
house.
think, yeah, that would be the idea. For
And
sure.
then you'd
Sign
have-
me up. That sounds like fun. I'm
That's a
in.
great
They're
idea.
fun.
Yeah.
Safety, make sure you get traffic control and get some people with some stop,
Right.
slow sign, paddles,
Right.
windy roads, roadside work.
Yeah. Super good idea.
Yes. Thank you very
you.
much. We driving over Spring Mountain Road over the weekend. There were the Fire Safe Council over the hill was doing a street cleanup, and they were tired and they were walking in the middle of the road with all their high vis on, but our roads are dangerous. So yes, absolutely, safety first. Party second. Any other ideas or pointers? I think That's really a good place to start. I know Hennessy Bob Cumby, Hennessy Rector of Fire Safe Council, is looking at potentially doing some grazing, I think, to for maintenance. How's that coming along?
We're hopefully starting on part of it Monday. We have a couple of large, kind of in the ballpark of 20-ish acres fire breaks that were created a few years ago that need to be maintained. We're going to have some sheep and goats out on those. And there was about 150 feet from Route 128 that where we did a shaded fuel break a year ago. And once we get approval from the city of Napa, we'll be grazing on that area as well.
Another way, I think Cyril had mentioned that you guys were thinking about doing that as an ongoing kind of having a community shared herd and putting up permanent fencing.
Yeah, we'll do the plan is to do the stuff along 128 annually, and the big fire breaks. We're going to see if we can get away with doing those semi-annually. Do one year and one another year. And
great, thanks, Joe.
See if that works
Yeah,
out.
great. Well, I do look at the time. It's already 6. Thank you, Bob, for that, and thank you all for being here tonight. We'll send you the materials as I mentioned, and be in communication with you about your volunteer hours. Thank you for pulling those together as well, and appreciate everything you guys do. Send me any ideas or questions or topics you'd like to see covered in future meetings, and we'll see what we can do for you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks, Peter.